Hi, everyone. I would like to do a little bit of self-facilitation. I find it very helpful and inspiring and educational in our efforts to deprogram and deconstruct and process at the roots to become skilled in self-facilitation. I see, and I'm very grateful on the Killer Bee members area. There's more and more sessions, like sessions being facilitated and being shown there. I love that, and I learn from it, and we all learn from it. I don't see a lot of self-facilitation there, and I feel that ultimately, you can have a facilitation from time to time, once a week, if you're lucky or so. But this self-facilitation is really important. So, and we speed up the process of becoming freer, and we diminish landing, and we meet our suffering head on if we can self-facilitate, especially using third dimension tools. So that was my plan. I wanted to do some self-facilitation for some time, but I didn't have something juicy or edgy to work on. So I wanted to have something that's real. And something happened, like yesterday, so-called, what in a regular urban it would be like drama, some drama between some people. And so now I have something to work, to explore. Yeah, so without going into details, it's more like, just to give you a context, so somebody that I'm relatively friends with shared something about somebody else that I'm very close with, like something, like some diagnosis or name calling or something. And then I went to the other friend of mine because I was surprised. And so I asked him, hey, what's that about? And then the other person kind of shared with me. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then there was some interaction between them too. And anyway, it got kind of edgy for some of them. And I was feeling a little bit caught in the middle, and definitely energy in my body and trigger. So it's really important to take advantage of triggers and not to hold our trigger sacred, like, oh yeah, I'm triggered and I feel righteous, and then I go into some psychological explanation and I'm defending my righteous trigger. And so it's really important for me, it made a big difference to use, when I heard this pointer from Scott, to use Scott Killaby, to use current triggers to really go into primary repression, and to use current triggers to go underneath and use it as an opportunity to process out more and free myself from this stuff. So whenever there's a current trigger, and actually, we are in this KI community, and then if we think that it's supposed to be like all lovey-dovey and we all love each other and we are like peaceful and harmonious at all times, that's just naive. And actually, it's an important principle in spiritual sanghas, that inadvertently, inexorably, we are going to get triggered and have judgments about this and that, and we are going to have shadows and projections and stuff. And so it's really important to be advised about that, and to know that there's a great opportunity, actually, great opportunity to have judgments and to be triggered about the other people in the Sangha. And that is a demand of practice, meaning that is a demand for us to look and see what's in there. Yeah, so I'll go into this. Also, I wanted to it's okay, let's not go into that. And in case you're wondering what this shirt says, I know it probably comes sideways here. It's a shirt from when I was deeper into this non-duality, and it says consciousness. Consciousness is that, whatever it is, which is reading these words right now. Consciousness is that, whatever it is, which is hearing these words right now. It's a pointer from Francis, and I really loved it, and it helped to get clarity about what consciousness is. This being said, it's a first dimension pointer, and you know, I was just before recording this now, I wanted to do a little bit of meditation, first dimension meditation, and then I could see that I had this energy in the body around this situation, and I could see that it's totally inadequate now for me to go into simply witnessing and allowing. It will work, but what is more effective actually to use hybrid self-facilitation using second and third dimension. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. And I have a sense that it's around fear or anger, this pattern of yeah, maybe some pleasing people or being afraid of people being upset with me. Yeah, being afraid of people being upset or people having a problem in my childhood. Yeah, it's definitely, this is the result of trauma. The child has been scared and shocked, and then it becomes like a harmonizer and trying to avoid people being upset with me. And so that's kind of good boy, conflict avoidant, anger repressor or suppressor, truth expression suppressor and repressor, and fear underneath. So let's go. I'll drop in a little bit underneath these thoughts and just to allow the energy a little bit. That it's in my belly, solar plexus belly. I'm going to bring up the people involved here, my mind's eye. Yeah, I'll bring this lady, this person, and I'm going through first door. First door is that just, I'm not sure what that is, but there is energy, there's tension. So I want to make sure I don't resist it. So I want to fully, it's totally okay to feel this. I want to fully allow this. I don't need to get rid of this. I don't need to change this. I want to fully feel this in my belly. Yeah, it's allowed, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid about what happened here. I'm not afraid to go into VI, to go into the second door to see what this is about, actually, to unpack it. I'm not afraid. I'm afraid. The energy, I'm firing into the energy. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. I see some kind of almost different. Mihai comes in here more younger, so I'm going to allow this. I'm scared. Let the body do what it wants to do. Let the body participate in this. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm afraid. 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 Don't be upset with me. Okay, don't be upset with me. Don't be upset with me. Don't be upset. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I'm afraid she's upset with me. I'm afraid that she's upset with me. I'm afraid that he's upset with me. I'm afraid that they are going to be upset with me. I'm afraid that they are going to be upset with me. Don't be upset with me. I'm scared. 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 I'm afraid. I'll go into Romanian. Mi frică, mi frică, mi frică. Mi frică. Don't be upset with me. Mi frică, mi frică. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I can bring up mommy and dad. I can bring up my dad. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him being upset. I'm not afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid in my belly. It's in my belly. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm very afraid, I'm very afraid. I need to I need to hide, I need to hide, I need to hide, I have to hide, I have to hide, I have to lie, I have to hide, I have to cover, I have to hide and lie, I have to hide, I have to hide so that he doesn't get upset with me. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I have to be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful, hide, lie, hide, hide. Hide, I have to hide, I have to hide. I'm so afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Don't shout, don't shout, don't. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I want to feel this now. I want to feel this energy now. Scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. Don't shout, don't shout, don't shout, don't hit me, don't hit me, don't hit me, don't shout, don't hit me. I'm afraid, I have to hide, 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 I have to lie, I have to hide, I have to lie, I have to lie, I have to hide, 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 hide. I have to hide, 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 hide. I'm totally like I'm aware of like this. Like I guess you guys can see. Hide, 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 hide. I have to hide because I'm afraid. 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 I'm afraid, and I can put my dad and this woman. I'm afraid of their anger. I'm afraid they're upset with me. They're upset with me. They're upset with me. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. From childhood, I'm afraid. 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 I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. It's okay that I'm scared. Don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Don't. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I have images of my childhood. was afraid. I was afraid a lot, a lot. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I have to hide this. I have to hide this, and I have to hide. I have to hide, and I have to hide my fear. I have to hide my fear. I have to hide my fear. I have to hide it. I have to be good. I have to be good. I have to be good. I have to be good, and I have to hide, 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 hide. It's still in the belly. It's kind of diminishing. Hide, 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 because I'm afraid. 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 The energy is moving. There's still energy in the same area. I just want sometimes to just allow, since I know what it is, to just allow energy. I also have the insight that, yeah, like now, so as a 6-year-old, I was scared, and it was hard to deal with somebody shouting at me or somebody being angry with me, and I was shocked. But as a 46-year-old, 6'2", 6'2" kind of man, it's okay if people are upset to me. It's totally okay. I can handle it. It's okay. Let's go with that. Because I've been noticing holding back something to say, something out of this trauma energy. People are going to be upset with me from the past. So seeing this person and this other person, it's totally okay if they're upset with me. It's totally okay if they scold me. It's totally okay. It's totally okay if she can be totally upset with me. I don't mind if she's upset with me. I don't mind. They can come shout at me. They can be upset with me. They can point the finger to me. They can show me anything. I'm totally okay if they're upset with me. It's totally okay if she's upset with me. I don't mind at all. It's totally okay. I can be fully real with her. I can be fully real with her, although she may be upset with me. I don't mind if she's upset with me. I shot a bunch of inquiries here. Totally okay if she's upset, and they're all upset with me. No, 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 no. I'm afraid. 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 I'm afraid that. I'm afraid that. I'm afraid that she will have edgy energy towards me. I'm afraid she'll have edgy energy. I'm afraid of her anger. I'm afraid of her anger. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid of her anger. I'm afraid of her anger. She actually called me. She called me. She called me when this happened, and I was like, whoa. I didn't answer. I mean, I was busy, but I didn't want to. Yeah, I was avoiding this confrontation. It's totally okay that she's angry with me. I don't mind confrontation. I don't mind being angry, people being angry with me. I don't mind at all. I don't mind. I can just call her now. I'm going to call her now after this session, and just it's totally okay. She's angry with me. It's much less energy now, but it's still, I'm afraid. I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. I'm afraid, 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 I'm afraid. I want to do some backdoor stacking. Backdoor, like this. I don't need this anymore. I don't need to be afraid of people's anger. I don't need this. I can don't let this go. I don't need it at all. I can be free of this now. I don't need it. I don't need this fear. I need it. 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 I need this. I need it. I need it to be, I need to protect myself. I need it to be careful. I need this fear to avoid. I need it to avoid. I need to avoid. I need to avoid. I need to avoid. I need to avoid anger. I need it. I need it. I need it. I need it to be safe. To be safe. To be safe. I need this to be safe. I need it. I need to be afraid. I need to be afraid. I need to be afraid. I have to be afraid. I have to be afraid. Afraid. I'm 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 reminding myself to hear this voice too. Yeah. So putting the energy and hear the voice as if it's not even mine. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I have to be afraid. I have to be afraid to stay safe. I have to be afraid to stay safe. I have to. Let's slow this down now. Second dimension. I'm getting nothing. Utility. I'm getting nothing from maintaining this fear of people being upset with me. What's the utility of maintaining this being, avoiding people being upset with me? Yeah, you know, the first response is like, well, to be safe, but to be safe from feeling my fear. So I'm avoiding situations where people may be upset with me. I'm holding myself back so that people are not upset with me, so that I avoid this fear. So in order to be safe from this fear, I need to be afraid. Yeah, this came from the backdoor stacking. I don't need this fear. I don't need this fear. So no, I need it. I need this fear in order to avoid people being upset with me. Why do I avoid people being upset with me? So that I don't feel this fear that was really unpleasant in childhood. I don't need to avoid people being upset with me. I can fully be myself. I can fully express myself. I can fully express myself to this lady and to this man, fully express myself. I can fully be real. I'm afraid. 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 I'm scared. I'm scared. Don't shout at me. Don't shout at me. Don't shout. Don't be angry with me. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. Don't yell. Don't yell. Don't hit me. Don't yell. I'm afraid. 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 I'm just seeing more like my childhood. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, 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 I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Although I'm afraid, I'm totally safe now. I'm totally safe. That's true. I'm safe. I just want to, as I'm more aware of these things and I know what it says and what the programs are, and it diminishes and actually it's moving, I want to just allow without words. But I do this only when it's diminishing and it's kind of like, and it's moving. And after I have understood what's happening, so I like to do this because this is a child aspect. I mean, it's energy, it's trauma. It's thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. This fear, this younger fear. Thank you for coming. I love you. You can stay as long as you need. Yeah, and yeah. Yeah, so I like to kind of, since it's happening, to kind of go back to a sense of spacious presence that I am, and to fully allow these energies that were stirred and diminished and released. And also it came to me as a homework that, yeah, the tendency is to avoid this person's anger or upset with me. I would avoid her and disconnect, and then actually the connection would be severely affected. So I would lean into it and call her and be real with her and hear her. And this way, lean into this fear of people being upset with me, and it's more coming. It's okay. I can process it and lean into being real. Yeah, and not disconnect out of fear of her anger. I can handle her anger as a man, as a presence, as man. I can handle it. Yeah. All right. So I used primarily 3D tools and use this first door. I'm just saying this because I know Scott is using often this just do first door, second door, back door. And for me, sometimes I'm like, what? What? I have to really slow down to remind myself what that is. And I'm pretty sure I talked to some of you and you are like, that goes over the head. And it's like, it's a pity. So I wanted to slow it down. And so first door is that there is some energy in my body. I don't know what it is, and I'm resisting it. First door is to, I still don't know what it is, but I want to allow it. I don't want to resist it. Inquiry for first door would be like, it's okay to feel this. I'm not afraid to feel this. I want to feel this. Yeah, this will either allow for this to come out more, or they may come the fear of feeling it. Like, no, I don't like it. I don't want to feel it. If that is the case, you can now rapid fire the I hate it, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't. You can rapid fire the resistance into the energy. Actually, that will release it, and then you can go back to I'm willing to feel this now. Then you will feel it more. So you are passing through the first door. when I did it in this process, my system was okay with it, so I passed the first door. Then now you have this thing which you don't know what it is. So then in my process, I went to brought the people up, and I'm not afraid. I had the sense it's fear, so I'm not afraid. So using the VI, vulnerability inquiry, I went straight into the fear, and I did rapid fire on the fear and of this other programs. Have to hide, to avoid people's anger, hide out of underneath is fear. So that's the back door, starting to actually unpack what that was, and it starts to be felt and seen and felt and seen. That is the second door. Sorry, that is the second door. Now it's no longer energy and contraction. It is actually fear and the programs. The back door is as the fear is happening, and it's happening, and I'm rapid firing it, we are checking for, there might be some subconscious programs that actually want to maintain this attitude. So I want to maintain this, so some kind of resistance to letting go of hiding and being afraid of people's anger from childhood. And somehow there might be some subconscious program that wants to keep it and still operate from that. Yeah. So backdoor would be like, I don't need this fear. I don't need this anymore. I can be free of this. Yeah. This is good to be thrown when there's still energy. And then witness and allow. And then what happens for what came for me said, no, I need it. I need this fear. I need it. I need it. I need it. It helped me a lot in childhood and became operating system to, yeah, to be polite, to be nice, to hide, to hold back my truth, anger, repression, to avoid people's anger. So the back door, it revealed this utility. Yeah. Brought it to the surface. So all right, so rather than meditating, if I were to meditate, that will go down temporarily, but I will have the same childhood program running my life. Rather than meditating, I'll go into the third dimension tools, and rather than avoiding to connect to this person and disconnecting, I lean into it now. Yeah, so it's great. All right, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to share. And yeah, may this help us all. God bless us all. Get some guidance to free ourselves from this childhood fears. Another thing is to be afraid that the tiger is going to hit me, or a thief, like a robber is going to hit me over the head. That is legitimate and it is wired in the body. But fear of somebody being afraid of me, which comes from trauma, that's psychological fear. And it was legitimate for a 6-year-old or 4-year-old, but it can be undone. Yeah. All right. Ciao.